If you treat your creative work like your baby, you will stay broke. And Alli Machi learned this the hard way.
Well, I think having talked about the tropes and having talked about the audiences and really understanding that mindset shift, that you're shifting, because when you're working with a publisher, you have a third party who's sort of imposing these things on you, right? They're not going to publish your book if it's not marketable, if it's not clear who the target audience is. When you self-publish, you have to kind of be your own gatekeeper. And so you need to research what some of these things are so that you can hold yourself to those standards. A lot of authors who self-publish, they do so because they tell themselves this story about how what they have is so unique and that big publishers don't understand it, or, this is my creative vision. And again, that's a great place to start from. But if you're too precious about your work and you're too precious about your ideas and you fail to take into account the audience's needs and desires, you're just creating something for yourself, right? Nobody else is going to buy it. So that's really the most important thing, is understanding that, your book is not your baby.
This is the sentence that makes creatives flinch, because we've been trained to treat our work like a fragile extension of ourselves. But that mindset is exactly what keeps us stuck.
Your book is a product, right? Like, it's a sneaker, it's a restaurant, it's shampoo, it's just like any other product. And you have to learn to think about those same kinds of marketing details that other businesses do when it comes to actually selling your book to people.
Perfectionism feels noble until you realize it's just fear wearing a fancy outfit.
So, yes, have your vision. Yes, tell the story you want to tell, but also learn about some of those expectations and constraints so that you can do what you want to do within that framework, so it reaches the people you want to reach.
This is the part creatives hate hearing. The industry isn't emotional, it's mathematical, and if you don't understand the math, you get crushed by it.
One of the most important things that I think a lot of new authors either aren't aware of or shy away from mistakenly is this idea of things being written to formula, right? People think, they hear the term formula, creative people especially, they hate the term formula. They hear formula and they think, it's going to be awful, it's going to be boring, I don't want it to be formulaic. And the truth is that the most marketable books, the books that do the best, do in fact make use of formulas, but they make use of them in smart ways. So it's absolutely incorrect to think that just because something is written to a formula, that means it's not going to be well written. And I think
we think originality is the goal, but the audience wants familiarity with a twist, not a reinvention of the wheel every time.
A mystery thriller or a romance, these are really great examples of formulas that are time-tested and that work. When people read a romance novel, people who love romance, they expect that story to follow a certain pattern of events. One of the most important, of course, is the happy ever after, right? The happy ending. If you write a romance book and you don't have a happy ever after, you don't have a happy ending, you're going to have a lot of bad reviews and a lot of pissed off romance readers because they're not getting what they expected from you. And related to this is also this idea of tropes. It's kind of the same thing. So again, to use romance as an example, you have the enemies to friends or enemies to lovers trope. Very, very common. We have two leads who start off hating each other and end up together by the end.
Yeah.
You have tropes like the sexy, funny best friend who's trying to get the lead character out of her shell, right? So there are certain elements of stories as well that in each genre, and some of them are unique to a genre, some of them are things we see across different genres, but every type of book has an audience that expects and loves certain tropes and certain formulas. The authors who understand how to take those things and make them their own, to tell your story, to tell your unique story, to use your unique voice and style, but to hang them on the frame of these formulas and tropes, that's what makes a best-selling book. Constantly trying to be unique and different and no one's ever seen this before. Honestly, from a creative perspective, sounds really exciting. From a marketing perspective, it is the kiss of death.
Trying to be completely unique is the fastest way to become invisible. The market rewards clarity, not chaos.
Yeah, I think it's one of the really sad things about how publishing as an industry and as a field has evolved. There definitely was a time where publishers were a key way that new authors could get discovered. They were actively looking for new voices, fresh voices, people that they could introduce to the reading public and to literary critics. That was definitely a thing at some time. But yeah, for all of the corporate reasons and financial reasons and the marketplace, just the way that things have changed, unfortunately, it's not so much the case. I mean, certainly some publishers do still very much like to discover authors, but as you said, they have smaller budgets and higher requirements in terms of who owns them. They're corporate owners involved in a lot of these publishers, and they need to make dollars. They need to meet that bottom line. So those things sometimes, unfortunately, matter almost more than the book itself.
If you want your work to pay your bills, you have to stop treating it like a sacred object and start treating it like a product with a purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. Being an author is a full-time job in and of itself. And really, no matter what kind of book it is, whether it's a novel or an actual business book, publishing a book is a business unto itself. You're creating a product. You need to learn about your target audience or your target market for that product. You need to package it and produce it. Once it's out there, you need to market it. You need to get it in front of the right people so that they will then buy it and or take whatever actions that might follow, depending on, again, if that book is part of a business strategy, or if it's a novel and you're just looking to get them on a mailing list because you're going to write 3 more books in the series. So it's always going to be about thinking through what that next step is.
This is the identity crisis every creative hits. Are you making art for yourself, or are you making art for people?
Readers of romance do not, right? So it's all about understanding what you're creating and what your audience wants. Because ultimately, when you're writing a book as a creative person, you reach a point where you have to make a decision. Am I just doing this for myself, or am I creating something I actually want to sell to other people? And once you decide that you're creating something you want to sell to other people, it's no longer all about you. You have to take into consideration what they want and what they're looking for. Otherwise, you won't sell anything.
Detachment isn't selling out, it's leveling up. It's the moment you stop protecting your art from the world and start preparing it for the world. Your art deserves to be seen, but only if you let it grow beyond you. Folks, this was just a small portion of this interview. If you want to catch the whole thing, jump on over to the Like-Minded Arts podcast. And don't forget to check out my website and help support this channel by checking out my books, buying them, reviewing them. It helps me continue to interview awesome guests like this, and it helps to pay the bills and keep the lights on. That's all I ask for, is that you enjoy some of my creative writings as well. Have a nice day. I'll see you next time.